so much for joining us for the 24th Annual Garden State Film Festival. This year, we have over 200 films and film-centered events from various countries, all happening across 9 venues from March 26th to the 29th this year. Today, I am here with director-writer Antonio Martin Ducrot, producer Emma Ferris, cinematographer Amelia Haregi, and editor Roy Cheng for the graduate student film Luca and Johnny. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. I understand you are in very warm Los Angeles as opposed to how cold New Jersey is right now, but thank you so much for joining me. I would love to hear about your film.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
So I guess to start, Antonio, what inspired the writing for Luca and Johnny?
I think it's funny because when I co-wrote it with Connor, he's not here. We wanted to talk about a young parent and how they navigate their life being a young parent and what decisions they have to make and try and balance their career along with their kid. But as it went on as a story, as we wrote, and also in the edit as well, the story transformed a bit, where we instead were not as much focused on the POV of the parent, but more so the POV of the kid and his helplessness in this situation. So it's interesting how that story changed over time, and I know Roy can add to that. You know, through the edit, we played around with the story a good bit. So yeah.
And what was that like for the four of you? Have you worked films before? I assume that you are all in school together.
Yeah.
So is this your first film together?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting setup because they're all graduate students, and there was a scenario with just numbers wise where I was an undergrad and a senior, and I was supposed to be working on my senior thesis, but just numbers wise, they had a group of the undergrad producing majors work and attached to a graduate project. Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting origin for it, but I really loved working on it. It was a different experience, and yeah, Amelia, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say it ended up working out well because Emma and I have now worked on a couple projects together, which has been great as me doing roles other than DPing. So it's been fun to work with her. And then also I had worked with Roy before as an editor for projects that I've shot. So this was my first time working with Antonio, but it was kind of fun to see all this mesh. And I mean, I remember when we were first crewing up for this project, I actually reached out to Antonio because I got to be on the crew, not the DP, but I was ACing on a project that he shot the semester a year before. And I really liked how he worked with the actors and everything. And so when it was time to start kind of crewing up and pairing for our next project, I reached out because I was like, I'd love to hear what story you're going to tell. And so it ended up working out, which was great. But yeah, so it's kind of fun how we all kind of got to work together.
Well, that's awesome. Obviously, you work together very well because you have been accepted. Congratulations into the Garden State Film Festival. With that said, did you guys get an A?
I don't think there was a grading system, but we got good feedback.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, for each of you, what was this project like, coming from a producer, a cinematographer, an editor and such?
I'll just go first. Yeah, it was different because the project that I had worked on the year prior, as a year below, it was a very simple, straightforward project where it was just kind of we have our list. The school has a list of the 7 big no's or things that you should probably try to avoid as a student film, and my previous film had none of those. We just made it super easy, straightforward. Whereas this one, it was okay, we're going to introduce filming a longer distance away from the school, filming with a kid, having food on the camera. There were a lot of different things. So my producer brain was a little bit okay, different variables to kind of try to coordinate with this movie while also making sure that the story gets preserved, and because that's what drew me to it originally, and that's what really spoke to me as a creative. And so then it was kind of, for me, it was a really fun experiment to try to kind of figure out like, okay, how do we work with, how old was he? Was Noah like 6 years old when we filmed? So yeah, how do we work with that? And how do we,
No, he was 4. He was 4.
He was 4
No,
when we, oh my God.
No, I thought he was 6.
He was
double check.
But he was
he was
still
somewhere-
he was a young boy.
But yeah, so it was just a lot. It was a lot of fun to try to kind of figure out how to do a really good story, but also deal with some roadblocks in the way.
Okay. Amelia, as a cinematographer, what was this project like for you?
Yeah, I had a really fun time with this project, especially because once we kind of knew what the story was and we had the script, I knew one thing that me and then our production designer, her name's Caitlin Lopez, I worked very closely with her, and we kind of came up with like color palettes and kind of the overall like look that we wanted to feel inside this house that we were filming at. And one of our big things was primary colors, because we were kind of coming from this perspective of a young boy. And so we ended up finding this house that already had painted like yellow, red, blue walls, which was kind of perfect. So it was a great like base for us to work. And then we were able to, of course, add on, like our production designer did a phenomenal job, and we were able to like work super closely together. But then in terms of, I guess, the more technical side of it, I know Antonio and I talked early on, and we really wanted kind of the handheld, kind of almost free spirited like feel of this film. And so I hadn't shot something that was entirely handheld before, so I made sure to do a ton of research on how can I preserve, like making sure it still looks clean but having that feel, but maintaining like safety and health room, whatever, just because we were using a pretty big camera, which was also fun. But I got to kind of work through some challenges and learning just how, for a multi-day shoot, what's the best way to make this the most efficient and also best for everyone on the crew and myself. And so it was fun. We got to do a lot of stuff together, but it ended up working out really well. And because we were handheld, it helped us follow along. I love kids, and so I'm used to them, but this little boy, his name's Noah, he was pretty rambunctious, and so following him along on the camera was definitely an added challenge that, it made me better.
No, that's awesome. I guess, and then everything you handed off to Roy.
Oh yeah, for me, this is definitely a very unique experience because we had all these plans, like Antonia and Amelia, we were communicating for pre-production, and they had those plans. Oh, we probably gonna do like all these one takes, and then during the edit we could like figure it out how we could like put everything together. But like when we're actually sitting down and editing it, and then we realized that we actually cannot use any long takes, and then I had to tell them that I'm very sorry that this is not gonna work out. Like we have to figure something out. And then we ended up like until now we literally we were in like 3 or 4 edit sessions every week, and then we kind of had to like figure out like nitpicking from like every footage that we got and try to figure out which part like we could use in the film. So it's definitely it was very stressful for us, but like I'm glad it turned out well. Yeah.
So I mean, passing it on to Antonio as the writer and the director, what was it like working with this team and seeing what you've written and envisioned come onto screen?
I mean, it was great. I mean, working with the team was easy. I think just to add on to everyone, it was more difficult working with the kid and, kind of throwing away all of our plans. Like a lot of the time with Amelia, I'd just be like, okay, just start shooting this. Like just follow him. Because a lot of the time he would just do his own thing. Yeah. And then he was kind of just like forcing us to change the story a bit sometimes too. Sometimes, we would tell him, I would give him some direction, and then I'd turn around, he'd be gone. He'd be at like caterings looking for snacks, or like he was just like all over the place. So I think for me, the biggest challenge and learning experience was, how do you work with such a young kid? And the reason why I chose him was because he had this rambunctious actual personality. So I wasn't really directing him that much in his acting. It was more like keeping him more disciplined, because that's who he was, and that's what we loved about him. That's why he gave such a good performance, because he wasn't really acting in a sense. But yeah, with this team it was easy, and they did a great job of supporting everyone, and it was overall it was really a fun experience.
And I mean, you talk so much about this young boy. Where is it you found your cast?
So he's in Arizona. We did a pretty large casting call, and talked to a good amount of kids. But I definitely wanted to have one who already was very conscious, mischievous, and who had already had a big personality, and he had a very big personality. I think everyone who went on the set was like, "Where did you find this kid? He's hilarious." So he made the set a lot of fun, but definitely learned a lot of stuff with Roy, with the edit, with Amelia, with like, hey, we're gonna have to go off plan here because the kid's just not saying this line, or he's not doing this certain movement because he's 4 through 6. I believe he's 4. Maybe maybe he's 5. But yeah. So those are the big things.
And then kind of going off of what Antonio said, but our lead actor, Bradley, he was incredible and was such a good, honestly, father figure to this young boy too. So they built a really strong relationship right off the bat because our kid, he this was his first time on a film set. And so obviously he didn't know what was going on. You see all these lights, the cameras, so many crew working around. He had this big personality, but you saw so much growth from him from his day 1 versus his day 4 because we did a 4-day shoot. But he instantly like kind of attached to our lead actor, and it really just helped with that special bond. And I mean, Noah kind of put Bradley through the ringer a little bit, but like it was very much, you can see on screen that they had like a chemistry between the two. And so it was really sweet to see that relationship kind of form and strengthen throughout the 4 days.
That's beautiful. Where is it that you found, you said his name's Bradley? Where is it you found Bradley from?
He's LA based.
LA
And
based?
he's been in a few other Chapman films, and I was always like, he's very talented. Would love to work with him, and then it worked out. And then Blake as well, who is the father. He's been in a lot of stuff. He was in like The Office. He's in this new show called Wonder Man, Sons of Anarchy, and both of them, like Amelia said, like specifically Bradley, because he was playing the father, so they were a lot of time. He had a lot of time with the kid. He was amazing. Helped us out a ton. But also Blake too. I want to shout both of them out for really helping out with Noah and making it easier with the kid. It was a group effort.
So, I mean, I feel like I could interview you guys for an hour. But, I guess to kind of, wrap things up, what is it that each of you, whether it's collectively or individually, wants your audience to take away from this film, or that you may have taken away from your own experience, like just working on your part of the film? Take it away, Emma.
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing when I first read the first draft of the script and we were working through it and then we were just getting more familiar with the story, the biggest thing, and I've told Antonio this, I've told Amelia this, like everyone knows this about me, is that I really love stories with children and families and like things that explore those dynamics. And I work in animation now, so like the little inner child in me is like always kind of looking for that kind of thing. And so with this story particularly, it really kind of shows this, like, it's not this big extravagant action movie where someone's life is being threatened or there's this big disaster that's happening. It's just like a simple movie where they're going through something that a lot of families go through and a lot of single parents go through, and trying to kind of figure out, like, how do I explore my own passions, but also take care for this kid that's dependent on me. And I really love the way that we explore that dynamic between father and son in this movie, because even though we have this young kid, like, you can kind of see there's this, he doesn't have like the total understanding of what's happening. And so it's kind of really is on his dad to like keep his like innocence preserved and like have that magic for him, but do it the best he can in the situation. Yeah, so I think just like the magic of this story is that it's simple and it's kind of everyday in a way, but like that doesn't mean that it's any less impactful. There's a lot of things that each person can kind of glean from it.
Amelia?
Yeah, I really gravitate towards slice of life films as well because I think there's a lot of like both just story kind of what Emma was saying, story beauty, but also you have a lot of room for like some visual beauty as well, and really getting to use the space and the environment through like the images to be able to kind of enhance what is being seen on screen. And so for this story, I think one of the things that like I really took away from it personally was, and Antonio kind of already touched on it, but was the ability to kind of let go on set. I mean, obviously, there's a ton of pre-production that is involved in filmmaking. You have shot lists, shooting schedules, all these things. But of course, doing all that prep helps you be ready to when things go differently on set than you expected. You have the foundation of what your end goal is, but how you get to that end goal might change a little bit. And so, being a lot more, again, free going on shooting at times when this shot wasn't technically planned, and like a really happy accident that happened to us was we were shooting this scene outside where they're in the backyard, and all of a sudden we happened to be shooting on a weekend where LA was hosting like major sporting events, like 4 different ones, and all of a sudden there was this plane that skywrote a heart in the sky. And normally you get really annoyed when you hear planes for film sets because it messes up sound and everything, but we're seeing that this heart is being literally made in the sky, and we were like, this is perfect, like we need to get this, like this is a literally 1 in a million chance. And so being able to get footage like that really you feel like is a part of our story. We had people thought that we did that in VFX because it felt so fitting, but we just were able to take advantage of a moment that randomly happened, and we were able to pivot and still get the story that we were going for, but be willing to make those changes or do something that was off script, basically.
Roy?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I feel like we could talk about this film for a long time, but like for me, the most important thing is I feel like it's to trust your crew, just trust your friends, because I know they're all as passionate as I am when it comes to filmmaking. So just learn how to adapt and then trust the process. Yeah.
Antonio?
I think for the story, kids are very conscious, even when they're younger and when you might not think they are. And it's very easy for them to lose their innocence if it's not preserved. I think that's what the story is really about. So yeah, kind of, just emphasizing how, kids are more adults than you think, and they know what's going on more than you think. So yeah.
Well, you guys, it was such a pleasure to get to talk to you. Will I be meeting you in person at the festival?
I unfortunately don't think so. How about you guys?
Yeah, I don't know if I can make it, which is really sad. But
We're gonna see. I would
Yeah.
love to, but it's right in the middle of our semester, and actually, as Emma graduated in May, but the 3 of us graduate this May, which is exciting. But we gotta
Well, you know
finish.
what? Thank you for joining me today. If you're unable to make it, best of luck and congratulations with finishing out this year and graduation. Emma, congratulations on graduating. And Luca and Johnny will be screening at the Crystal Ballroom in the Berkeley Hotel on Saturday, March 28th from 12:30 p.m. to 2:15 p.m. We hope to see you at the Garden State Film Festival this year with over 200 films screening across 9 venues, including hosting parties, panels, events, and more. Get your tickets at gsff.org/tickets. Again, you guys, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks so much, Emily. Bye-bye.